Hi peeps, today I'm going to show you how to water a cacti or a succulent you might have in a little decorative pot. So let's go. Question number one that you probably will ask is, how do I know when it's time to water? And unfortunately, because you're not growing it in a clear pot like we normally recommend most plants that we grow indoors in at Planty Peeps, you do lose the visibility of, I can't see the growing medium, I can't tell if it's dry or dark or light or is it lighter feeling. So you will have to kind of learn a little about your plant and how much water it needs. So obviously the big tip for cacti and succulents is the hotter that it is outside, if you're growing them outside, the more light they're getting, the more often you're going to water. The darker it is and the cooler it is, the less often you're going to water. Now the second thing is, how do I actually water? Because obviously you'd look at this and go, okay, well I have a watering can here. It's kind of big. I feel like I'm going to just drown it and then all the growing media is just going to pour out the sides. So that's where these come in handy. So I love these little squeeze bottles. We sell them in both a 250 milliliter and a half-liter size. This is the half-liter. So watering with these gives you the ability to really start with a light little drizzle or go full force with something a little stronger. Inside this, I have just regular tap water that I have added both succulent focus to and some root zone. So it is spiked and ready to give my plant some nutrition. So with these, you'd want to avoid starting with full strength steam and just start around the edge of the pot with a really light little drizzle. You may even actually just rotate your pot and give it a tiny little squeeze and back off, tiny little squeeze and back off. Most soil, when it's dry, is hydrophobic, which means it's going to repel water. So if I just go full force, the growing media is just going to pour out the sides, and I'm going to have to probably add some more potting mix to this. Where if I start with a light little squeeze and just moisten the soil, it's going to make watering it much easier. So I've done a kind of 360 around the plant and gotten it in. I've got a little on the pot, but it's no biggie. And if you can see here, we are starting to drip out of the pot. That is totally fine. Do not stop there. I think a lot of people see when water starts coming out that, oh, it must be time to stop watering the plant because it's draining out. You probably have a lot of dry soil in there. And with cacti, again, it's how often you water, not how much. So I like to give my plants a thorough, heavy watering and then let them fully dry out. If I didn't really water this properly, it might dry out in 5 days, where I'm used to maybe it drying out in 8 to 10 days. So be a little more liberal than you think. You're not going to hurt the cacti by really saturating the soil. My kind of guide when I think it's time to maybe put the plant down and move on to the next one here is after it's draining out the bottom for about 15 or 20 seconds, depending on the size. If it's a big plant, a little longer. If it's a small plant, maybe a little less. I always water my plants over something, and that way I can use the water on my outdoor plants because it's got so much nutrition in it from all of the things we've added, so I don't want to waste it. And then I let this drip dry for about 20 to 30 minutes, either in my sink or in a tray before I put it back in its spot to avoid any water damage if I don't have it sitting on kind of a plant coaster. And then one last good tip, if you have any of these fuzzy little cacti or succulents, mammillaria, a kalanchoe that might be fuzzy, you want to avoid probably getting a ton of water on the foliage, just because if your water has something like root zone in it, which is brown as you can see in the pipette here, you might get some light staining. It's purely aesthetic. It's not going to harm the plant, but there are some plants that are more velvety that you may get some mildew if you have a ton of water sitting on top. So again, with these needle points, I feel like you get a lot more accuracy to really water around the plant versus on it. All right, I hope you found this helpful. Happy watering.